The Falcons and Giants have head coach openings, and who they hire could change your dynasty leagues. We'll tell you why next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us the #1 sports podcast network. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is the Fantasy Football Hall of Famer, Michael Fabiano. And on today's show, we're taking a look at the 6 current head coach openings. There could always be another that pops up in the next few days or so.
Maybe the Cowboys? No.
Stop it. Stop. It's already too early for the Cowboys stuff, but that's fine. And I want to start with some of the more notable openings. And I honestly think the most important one for us is the Falcons opening. They fired Raheem Morris. They let go of Zach Robinson. This was an offense that did a really good job of funneling all of their targets and touches to really Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts. But I wonder now, Fabs, if they're going to hire an offensive-minded head coach, and maybe that changes a little bit.
Yeah, that would be great. And, you know, in fantasy, we always want offensive head coaches. Or if it is a defensive mind, he brings in someone, you know, like they did in Seattle with Klint Kubiak, and that works out well. And maybe Kubiak's going to be a head coaching candidate now after, you know, what the Seahawks have done on the offensive side of the football. But I'd love to see Atlanta go in there and get someone with an offensive mind, someone who's going to, and I don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Okay. I don't know if it's going to be Penix. I don't know if it's going to be Kirk Cousins. We're not sure. We assume it'll be Penix, but I'm not sure. But when you have talent like that on the offensive side of the football, and their defense did get better this year. I mean, like you can't, you know, their defense did get a little bit better this year. It was pretty bad in 24, but you know, what coaches are going to be the ones who are at the forefront of this job if it's an offensive head coach? Could it be, you know, Kliff Kingsbury? You know, could it be, I haven't heard Mike McCarthy really mentioned with Atlanta. I'd kind of rather him go someplace else. You know, you can talk about Kevin Stefanski now that he's been let go by the Browns, which I think the Browns are going to rue the day because it's not his fault, because
we'll get there.
Their front office is a disaster.
I agree.
But I mean, is it Kubiak that goes to Atlanta? I mean, I'd love to see an offensive player go in there because they do have a lot of weapons on the offensive side of the football. And I mean, when you think about it, you know, how many teams have maybe the top runner in fantasy football, a top 5 to 8 fantasy wide receiver, and at least this past year, a top 5 tight end in fantasy. And that's what Kyle Pitts was.
And unfortunately, this still was the 24th ranked offense in the NFL. And I think that's what's so frustrating is, yes, Bijan and Drake London and Kyle Pitts were getting a lot of targets, but they weren't scoring a bunch of touchdowns because this offense was very rarely in the red zone. And I know they've had quarterback issues with Michael Penix getting banged up. They had some offensive line problems, including Caleb McGarry going down early in the season. But I do think we've seen, I mean, look at this year between the Jaguars or the Bears, or, I mean, there's been a number of these situations where you hire the right head coach and instantly the offensive, you know, ceiling and floor goes way up. I think the Falcons are one of these teams where if they get the right coach, if they can stabilize the quarterback position at all, we could see Bijan and Drake London hit some numbers that we've never seen before.
And that's our hope. I mean, I did not, and I don't think anyone understood the selection of Michael Penix after they had brought in Kirk Cousins on that huge deal. And, you know, some may think that Kirk Cousins is washed, and at times he did look washed, but I mean, Atlanta went 4-0 down the stretch, you know, with Cousins under center. And so the quarterback situation is definitely a challenge for them because, I mean, let's be honest, Michael Penix wasn't great. I mean, you know, he showed some flashes here and there. It wasn't great. So, and he's extremely injury prone, especially with those knees. So Atlanta's got some things to concern themselves with when it comes to the quarterback position, but bringing in an offensive mind would certainly help from a fantasy perspective. And that's why fantasy managers are always overlooking the defensive guys. You know, like, we want offensive head coaches. Look at what Liam Cohen has done in Jacksonville.
Another one that I think is very interesting is the Raiders opening, because it's Brock Bowers and Ashton Jeanty, 2 of the top 5 guys at their dynasty respective positions, right? Not a lot else. But the quarterback situation is a mess. The offensive line is atrocious. And now they're going to be hiring a new head coach after Pete Carroll was let go. They already fired Chip Kelly middle of the season. I think this is another one where if you just get competent offensive coaching, almost regardless of who the quarterback is, I think we could see both of these guys play even better in 2026.
Is it me? I mean, maybe it's just me. I don't know. But is Kingsbury not like a good fit for the Raiders? I mean, like, I'm just thinking about it, like, first thought. And if they're going to get, they have the number 1 overall pick. So I'm guessing they're going to get Mendoza. So, okay. You got Fernando Mendoza. You've got Ashton Jeanty. You've got Brock Bowers. You got to bring in some wide receiver help, obviously. There's no doubt about that. Could Kliff Kingsbury be a really good option for that offense from a fantasy standpoint?
Maybe. I don't think it's the worst name in the world. I think if you're a Raider fan, you're hoping for someone maybe a little bit more creative. And you mentioned Klint Kubiak earlier in the show. Like, I think that's something that would be a fascinating fit. But I do think it's going to be somebody like Kingsbury or somebody like that, because they've got to get somebody in here who's going to develop the quarterback that they're going to take at number 1. We assume it's Mendoza. Maybe it's somebody else. But they've got weapons, and they've got to figure out how to consistently get the ball to those weapons, because there were games earlier this season where Brock Bowers was healthy and on the field, and Chip Kelly was giving him like 3 or 4 targets, like just not.
How could it not
involved.
be Mendoza though, Marcus? I mean,
unless they like
him.
Dante Moore from Oregon is another really good prospect. If he decides to come out, maybe the Raiders would prefer him. I don't know. I think it's Mendoza, but I don't think it's necessarily super cut and dry.
Oh, listen, you follow college a heck of a lot more than I do. I don't dip my toe in until, probably, after the Super Bowl, once we get into combine and that kind of thing. But I mean, the Raiders fan base would go bananas, I think, if it wasn't Mendoza with the number 1 overall pick. I mean, the quarterback position has been a nightmare for the Raiders, right? I mean, Derek Carr was good, wasn't great. He was good, but they haven't really had, is this the first time they've had the number 1 overall pick in the draft?
It's Jamarcus Russell.
Since Jamarcus Russell. I mean, right, exactly. And we all know how that went. They don't
well, I mean, so what we heard on Monday across the NFL is that John Spytek and Tom Brady are going to be running this coaching search. I don't think there's any way that you can hire a defensive-minded head coach when you're expected to draft a quarterback at number 1. It just doesn't work out.
Doesn't make sense.
Unless you find that kind of perfect match that's out there with like DeMeco Ryans and CJ Stroud. But I don't know who that is. And I have a hard time looking at the list of candidates and thinking Jim Schwartz or Jesse Minter are going to be the right guys to develop that quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. And plus, Max Crosby doesn't seem like he's long for Las Vegas. So, he probably wants to get out of there. The Raiders, and it's Vegas, man, Sin City. Like, we need some excitement there. Let's bring in the offensive fireworks. Let's bring in somebody who's going to be able to develop Mendoza as an NFL quarterback and utilize Ashton Jeanty to the best of his abilities and utilize Brock Bowers in the way that he can be utilized. And we saw that in his rookie year. The Raiders have offensive upside from a fantasy standpoint. They do need to add wide receivers. I know they drafted a few last year, and, you still got to give Thornton a little bit of a break and Jack Beck a little bit of a break. Like, they didn't really get an opportunity. So we'll see what they become. But that's a glaring need as well, because they traded away Jacoby Myers.
I don't love this coach, but I do think Mike McCarthy would provide some stability with the Raiders. He's got a really good track record of developing quarterbacks and getting them to play at a high level. I don't think Tom Brady is going to do that. But again, that would be a spot where if Mike McCarthy got hired by the Raiders, I could talk myself into it.
You know what would be insane is if they brought back John Gruden.
That's not happening.
I know, but I'm saying, like, imagine that. Imagine that would be crazy, man. But I want McCarthy to go someplace else. We'll talk about that. But
maybe McCarthy is a better fit with the Giants, who have a head coach opening, and they have a quarterback in Jaxson Dart. Let's talk about that situation next. This episode is brought to you by ZocDoc. Finding a doctor that you actually like can feel like discovering a diamond in the rough. You want someone in network nearby with availability, but you also want a doctor who really listens, makes you feel comfortable, and explains things clearly, and helps you walk out of that appointment feeling good about your next step. Your diamond in the rough doctor exists, and finding them is easy with ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high quality in-network doctors so that you can choose someone that you truly connect with. The real-time availability means that you can book instantly, no phone tag going back and forth, and appointments usually happen within 24 to 72 hours, and they can even have same-day openings. And if you need to book fast, they can help you. This is the first place that I would go. They make the process so simple. So stop putting off those doctor appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL to find and instantly book a doctor that you love today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL, ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. And thanks to ZocDoc for sponsoring this message. This episode is brought to you by Ultimate QB. Have you ever wished that you could become a pro quarterback, get drafted first overall by, let's say, the Las Vegas Raiders, who have the number 1 pick this year? Well, now you can, and there's a mobile game just for you called Ultimate QB Football Legend. And in this game, you step into the cleats of a number 1 draft pick quarterback, and it's your job to lead your team to greatness to help turn a failing franchise into a dynasty. This is the number 1 quarterback career mode game on the mobile app stores, and it introduces the most realistic environment with full career control. You can sign contracts, you can trade, you can upgrade yourself, build chemistry with teammates, and so much more. Plus, you can play the actual games in 2D and rise through the ranks to become a pro football legend. Ultimate QB is totally free to play, has no ads, and works 100% offline. Perfect when you just want to sneak in a quick game or two on the go. So head over to ultimate-qb.com. That's ultimateqb.com, or search for Ultimate QB in your app store. And we've got something special for you, for our Locked On listeners. Use promo code Locked On in the game store to get a free boost at the start of your career. Ultimate QB, football legend, QB1, it's your legacy. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your number 1 listen of the day. If you haven't done so already, check out the Everydayer Club. You're going to get ad-free episodes of this show for just $5 a month, plus exclusive Discord server access where you can chat. We can talk some fantasy football. There were a couple of people asking questions in there already over the weekend about some trades they should make. Go check it out on lockedondynasty.supercast.com. All right, Fabs, let's talk about some other coaching openings. One of the ones that I'm fascinated by are the New York Giants, because they have their quarterback, it appears, in Jaxson Dart. They have a couple running backs they really like. They have Malik Neighbors, so we'll get to it in a second. But this feels like a job that if you are an offensive-minded coach, you should want, and it does seem like that's where the Giants are going to go.
I think either Kevin Stefanski or Mike McCarthy would be a really good fit for the Giants. And I'd probably go with the latter there, because I just love to see McCarthy coach the Giants and whip the Cowboys twice a year because, me and Jerry Jones. But, McCarthy, look at his resume. He's got 185 career wins. He's had 12 winning seasons. He's won like 8 division titles. He's won a Super Bowl. And not for nothing, but the Cowboys offense was pretty good. When McCarthy was calling plays, Dak Prescott certainly had a lot of success there. So you bring him in, and I think he's like in his early 60s. So, he's probably looking for his last coaching job. You've got Jaxson Dart. You've got the 2 backs. You just mentioned Cam Scatterbo and Tyrone Tracy, who we don't want to forget. Yeah, Malik Neighbors, I don't know. We saw on social media some videos of him maybe not being at the point where he should be after the surgery. And, now.
Did that concern you? Because he was walking around.
And
he was walking around with a cane. Did that concern you?
I couldn't do that. I wouldn't look cool with a cane. I'd look like an old man. Malik probably can pull it off pretty good. Go to an IHOP and go looking, pretty dapper with the cane. But listen, it's really early in the process, so I'm not worried yet. But it doesn't seem like he's ahead of the game. Let's put it that way. Don't forget about Theo Johnson as well. So the Giants have a lot of offensive weapons. And, I didn't even mention Wendell Robinson. You improve that offensive line. Jaxson Dart's got already close to a year of starting experience under his belt. The Giants got to improve that defense, especially against the run. But I will tell you this, McCarthy would be a really good fit, and he alone would make me potentially want Jaxson Dart more. Even though I already love this kid, but McCarthy and what he's done with quarterbacks over his career, that to me is attractive. And it would be certainly more attractive than if, the Giants went out and hired like a Brian Flores and, wanted a defensive coach.
Couple things here. 2 weeks ago, we saw, so let's say Twitter rumors, that's probably the best way to put it, that there's a chance that the Giants could potentially draft someone like Mendoza if they had the number 1 pick because they think Mendoza's more talented, but they went and beat the Raiders and they beat the Cowboys, and now they're drafting outside of the top 4 picks. So that's just not going to happen, right? I also thought it was interesting.
That's crazy, by the way, but okay.
Well, I mean, I don't think it would have been crazy if Joe Schoen, the general manager for the Giants, got fired.
I don't think, but I mean, like, Jaxson Dart is not an injury, plagued quarterback. He got hurt twice this year. He missed 2 games.
Well, I'm saying more if you had
he didn't get hurt in Ole Miss. I mean, like, I feel like it's a bunch of crap. The kid came out and played real well. He's an exciting quarterback, and I would be dumb for them. I mean, it's like Atlanta drafted Michael Penix when they just gave Kirk Cousins $140 million. That's just stupid. It's not like the Cardinals when they had Josh Rosen, and Josh Rosen stunk. And then they went and drafted Kyler the very next year at number 1 overall. Completely different situation. I think that would have been a dumb move.
I have mixed feelings on it, obviously. But
do you not like Dart? Like, I mean,
no, I do. I do. I really like Mendoza, and I think you could have talked yourself into Mendoza being a big upgrade over Dart. But again, it doesn't really matter because they're not going to have a chance to draft him.
Dart's done it in the NFL. Like, I know they're not winning games, but like, he's shown already, like, as a rookie, Mendoza. I mean, listen, I mean, I understand, Trevor Lawrence hadn't really been that great until this year. Like being the number 1 overall pick. Hello, no. Jamarcus Russell. Like being the number 1 overall pick doesn't guarantee you anything.
No, it doesn't.
In the NFL. So
it's just if they had a new GM and head coach, maybe the new GM wouldn't have wanted to attach himself to Dart, but that's not the case because Joe Schoen is returning for the Giants, which I disagree with. I think they probably should move on with somebody else. And I can guarantee you what he's going to do is he's going to want to hire a head coach that makes Jaxson Dart look good and play better beyond anything else. Because if Jaxson Dart hits, Joe Schoen is going to continue to keep that job. So is it Kevin Stefanski? Is it Mike McCarthy? Is it Klint Kubiak? I don't know, but Fabs, I would be shocked if they hire a defensive-minded head coach. And honestly, I expect this Giants offense to take a big step forward in 2026 because you're going to be getting an offensive mind whose entire goal is to prop up Jaxson Dart.
Exactly. And that's why, look at the Bears this year, and Ben Johnson, he comes in, they had the Eberflus disaster, which, by the way, hopefully he's not the coach of the Cowboys defense next year. And
today.
And Ben Johnson has like, we as a fantasy community, whether it's dynasty or not, we have more faith in the Bears offensive assets now. Like, we feel good about Caleb. We feel good about Roma Dunze. At least I do. You feel good about Luther Burden. So do I. We feel great about Colson Loveland. We feel great about Kyle Monenguy's future. Would that be the case if it was a defensive-minded coach? If Eberflus had stuck around, I mean, the Bears wouldn't be that good. No. And that's what you're looking at here with the Giants. I already like the talent that they have, although, again, the neighbors thing, I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm not an internet doctor. I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn last night, so I'm not going to make any kind of damn predictions because I don't know. I'm not an orthopedic surgeon. But McCarthy would be a really good fit there. And I think Kevin Stefanski would also be a really good fit there, although I'd like to see Stefanski go to Tennessee. Tennessee's got a boatload of cap room. They've got Cam Ward, who was the number 1 overall pick last year. And I think you can build on something there in Tennessee. They're going to bring in, I think, a high-end wide receiver. Maybe it's George Pickens. Hopefully it's not. But they're going to bring in somebody. They're going to make some moves there. I think Stefanski would be a good fit for the Titans. And then if he goes there, Marcus, then you and I and other fantasy analysts probably feel a little bit better about the Titans' offensive options as well.
We'll get to the Titans in just a second. One other one that I wanted to mention here is the Cardinals, and they're kind of similar to the Raiders in the sense that they've got this awesome tight end.
Yep.
They've got a wide receiver that we really love in Michael Wilson. We'll see about Marvin Harrison Jr. The running back situation was a mess all year long because of injuries. But to me, this is maybe the least desirable job because there's no quarterback in place. They're going to trade Kyler. You're also playing in a division that is coached by Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, and Mike McDonald. That doesn't sound fun at all, but I'm not necessarily convinced that they are going to hire an offensive-minded head coach, and that concerns me a little bit here for some of the dynasty assets in Arizona.
I think Klint Kubiak would be a good spot there, just pie in the sky from a fantasy standpoint, because, all right, compare the rosters. Okay. They have a veteran quarterback in Sam Darnold. Maybe Arizona keeps a veteran quarterback in Jacoby Brissett, who played very well. Their backfield, you don't have one guy. So you can go with James Conner if he sticks around, and Trey Benson as a backfield committee. They have, I can't believe I'm saying this, but they have a really good wide receiver in Michael Wilson. Yeah. And not Marvin Harrison Jr. Although, again, the jury is still out. You've got Trey McBride, who's a very good tight end. And not for nothing, but Kubiak's offense turned AJ Barner into a fantasy asset at times this year. No one was talking about him. We were talking about Elijah Arroyo. So that might be a good fit just from a fantasy standpoint. I'm not sure that you would like that from a real football perspective, but I want that offensive coach there in Arizona. And unfortunately, I don't know that we're going to get that. We'll find out.
All right, let's talk about maybe the least desirable jobs currently on the market. That's Cleveland and Tennessee. We'll try to predict what's going to happen there next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour, and opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new, whether that's a boost, a bonus, or some other kind of surprise. And it's easy to check in on the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. So before the games start, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Fabs, let's wrap up with these two other job openings, the Cleveland Browns and the Tennessee Titans. The Titans job has been open now for 3 months after they fired Callahan. The Browns job, I think some people were surprised if Stefanski was let go. But let's start with Cleveland, because I think the sentiment out there is that the Browns are going to have a hard time getting a coach better than Kevin Stefanski. I don't necessarily disagree. I do think it was probably time to move on. But where do you think the Browns go?
Brian Flores is the perfect candidate for that job. Perfect. Cleveland's got a really talented defense. They've got the best sack specialist in the history of the National Football League, potentially, in Myles Garrett. Michael Strahan may have something to say about that. Or I guess you could also say the same thing about Bruce Smith. But that Vikings defense down the stretch, was impenetrable. It was insane. You couldn't start anybody against the Vikings down the stretch. Now, you couldn't start any Vikings either, but you couldn't start anybody against them. They were amazing. And I don't think Cleveland goes with an offensive head coach. I just don't. They've done that. Stefanski was that guy, and he had success there. But the Browns front office is the one to blame. You give $230 guaranteed dollar to a freaking, to a dude like Deshaun Watson, right? That hamstrings your salary cap situation. And they are going to win or lose based on the strength of their defense. And I pray that Quinshon Judkins is going to be okay for the start of the season, or at least the majority of next season, because he'll be the centerpiece of that offense. And I don't know who the quarterback's going to be. I mean, is it Shador? Is it going to be Dylan? I don't really know. Is it going to be somebody else? But that is a defensive opening as far as I'm concerned. And Brian Flores, I don't know if he would want the job or not, but he is the perfect fit for the Cleveland Browns, because even if their offense is not great, their defense is going to keep them in games every single week. I mean, listen, they just beat the Cincinnati Bengals. I know it was a meaningless game, but the Bengals had their full complement. It wasn't like they were playing against Jake Browning. And that Browns defense that's the way they're going to get into a position where they actually can compete maybe for the division. And so I love Flores there. Now, he's got to bring in an offensive coordinator.
I got one for you.
Go ahead.
So he worked with Brian Daboll in New England for multiple years.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, perfect. Great
I don't
job.
think Daboll's going to get a head coaching job. I think he's going to be stuck as an offensive coordinator. And while I think he has his flaws, I think Brian Flores and Daboll connection, that's a good fit for Cleveland. Like it's not the best hire in the world, but hey, this is how you rebound after moving on from Stefanski.
Our skills are being wasted away in fantasy football. Marcus and I should be out there making moves for the NFL.
I don't know if you want that, but that's fine.
All right. Listen, I would run the Cowboys and we'd be back in the damn playoffs a lot quicker than what we got going on right now. But I can tell you right now, sometimes the easiest and the most simple solutions are right in front of your nose. Cleveland, go out and get Brian Flores. It makes too much sense not to happen.
Last one, the Tennessee Titans. And this is one that I find fascinating because you really only have one asset. You do have a couple receivers that you maybe like long-term with DK and A.O. Manor. We'll see. I think they're going to have to upgrade that wide receiver spot. But I think Cam Ward is super talented. And I think he actually showed enough during his rookie year to be really excited about him. But now you got to get the right coach. And this is one of the least attractive jobs, but they do have a quarterback.
But just recently it wasn't. When you had Derrick Henry there and Ryan Tannehill, they went to the AFC Championship game when Mike Vrabel was the head coach there. So, I mean, it can be a good spot. They've got $113 million of cap space right now based on Spot Rack, which I'm going to live on that. Once the offseason hits, I live on this freaking website, by the way. Yeah.
Number one destination for Alec Pierce and George Pickens this offseason.
They could afford it. Yeah. Their offensive line needs to continue to get better. Mm-hmm. They have obviously, Simmons on defense is pretty phenomenal. I mean, they've got they've got draft capital.
Some talent. It's not like they've got a lot of money. Yeah.
So if you have a Cam Ward in there and, listen, Tajay Spears is a good player, Pollard's at the end. They can make improvements there. They have the money to do it. And Pickens, if he goes to Tennessee, I think I would wreck him from a fantasy standpoint. If we're talking fantasy and dynasty, he should stay in Dallas. There ain't no other place I'd rather have him unless somehow he goes to Buffalo. And I don't think
that would help Cam Ward out a bunch. He needs somebody else that can beat one-on-one coverage because he just doesn't have it right now.
Right. So if you bring in Stefanski, he is going to focus on that offense. And listen, Cam Ward, not every quarterback is a rookie as Jaden Daniels. I mean, a lot of them aren't. They're not great. Right? There's growing pains. You go back to the history of the National Football League and some of the greatest quarterbacks in the league who ended up going to the Hall of Fame in their rookie season, they sucked. Okay? I mean, you could go and look. Okay? It happens time and time again. He started to show something at the end of the year. He's a competitive kid. He's a winner, and I really like him. I don't know that he's going to be a breakout player in fantasy next year, but if they put the right pieces around him, could he be a sleeper? Absolutely. Calvin Ridley wasn't that guy. Calvin Ridley's past his prime and he just continued to get hurt. They bring in some weapons and they bring in Stefanski. I really like Gunnar Helm too. I think he's a really good prospect at tight end. The Titans could be a little bit more fantasy friendly next year.
I don't want to compare. I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to compare some stats. Listen to this quarterback from 2024, 15 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 2,200 passing yards. Cam Ward this year, 3,100 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Do you know who the first quarterback was?
I need you to give me those stats again.
The first quarterback I mentioned, 2024, 2,200 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, 10 interceptions.
Hang on, I'm thinking. I hate when I have to go through all of my
I'll just tell you
the teams in my head.
Drake May. And I think I'm not saying that Cam Ward's going to be Drake
well
May,
done.
but
Okay.
you are talking about somebody who was a number 1 overall pick who was fighting for his life out there. And I thought he showed quite a bit. I think if you get Cam Ward, the right coach, you get some more talent like New England did. New England had a bunch of cap space. They spent it on their offense. They got Stephon Diggs. They improved their offensive line. They drafted Trevion Henderson. I think Cam Ward could have a big year too. Maybe not MVP level, because that's unreasonable to assume that every quarterback can do that. But I think Cam Ward was really productive during year 1. Get him the right coach so we can fully see him blossom in year 2.
Yep. And Stefanski would be that dude. I don't think McCarthy's that guy. I think McCarthy is better fit for the Giants. So that's where I'm at. So for me, McCarthy goes to the Giants. Flores goes to the Browns. Stefanski goes to the Titans. Maybe Kubiak to the Cardinals. Kingsbury, Raiders, maybe. I mean,
then we got a Falcons opening, right? That we still haven't filled.
Right. I mean, Kingsbury could also be a fit for there. But if you think about it, Stefanski might also be a good fit for Atlanta as well, if they want to go with an offensive mind. And I think they probably do. I mean, like, we haven't really mentioned, like, Joe Brady in Buffalo. I'm sure he's going to end up being a guy that people are going to be at least interviewing.
Yeah.
But then a lot of the other candidates, Marcus, are like defensive guys.
I know.
I mean, there's like Jesse Minter and
Chris Shula,
Chris
with the Rams.
Shula, Jeff Halfley from Green Bay. Vance Joseph. I don't know if he's going to get. I'm sure he'll get interviews. I don't know if I'd want him to be a head coach again in the league. But there's a lot of defensive types that maybe we prefer not to have in fantasy. But they're going to get some looks as well.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Make sure you subscribe and follow the podcast so you can get all of the latest episodes. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Dynasty ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and so much more. Head over to lockedondynasty.supercast.com to join the club. And for those of you on video, we can send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. And on audio, make your second listen to the Locked On NFL podcast. Follow Fabs on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.